for anybody to become a top corporate leader. It doesn't matter what industry you are in, it doesn't matter what vertical you are in. These three qualities are required, and I'm going to translate them, and you'll see that as you come down in the hierarchy, how they basically translate into specific skills, specific things that you need to know. The first thing is you got to have an ability. One of the key things you need to have is an ability to think strategically about your area. Whatever industry you are in, you got to understand the key technologies, the key players, the competitive landscape, and how everything emerges over a period of time. That's a very key quality of a leader. So that is called strategic thinking. Second is ability to basically uh, meet your numbers, which means you can deliver your product, you can get revenue, because without that, you don't survive long. And third is an ability to essentially motivate people, because as a leader, you can never do everything yourself. It's always a teamwork. It's always about organizations coming together and working your way through it. Now, let me stop here before I go down the path of getting into each of these details. And I'm going to be doing this frequently throughout this 3-hour session. Do these intuitively make sense, or anything that comes to your mind? Any comments, any thoughts before I move forward on this path? And no question is a silly question. You guys can always add something. You can ask for clarifications if you feel whatever I'm saying.
So yeah, so Tushar, can I ask clarification, a bit clarification
So
on
you have to
first?
introduce yourself. So here's the thing. Since we want to know each other, you have to introduce yourself.
Okay, this is
And
okay, sure.
pardon?
So this is Ambika asking the question.
Sure.
And so you said the ability to think strategically and know about the area as a CEO, right? And
Mhm.
I'm just trying to kind of think about really large companies
Mhm.
who could have very diverse products, right?
Mhm.
And areas. So when can you elaborate a little bit on when you say area, what do you mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's pick your company, the company where you worked before, IBM, right?
Mhm.
And its new CEO, Dr. Arvind Krishna, is a 1985 electrical engineer from IIT Kanpur. I have a good friend whom I was talking with him yesterday night. He worked for him in IBM when he joined in 1995. Now look at somebody like Arvind. How has he grown as a leader? And that will answer your question. What I mean by strategic thinking and having an ability to do that. He's a PhD. He joined IBM's TJ Watson Research Center. So in that kind of a role early on in your career, or in his career, he figured out what are the new frontiers where IBM has to do research to move forward. By very definition, I'm not saying that's the only career path. I'm just giving an example. By looking at that particular area, where how exactly are you going to go and do new things, or what are the new frontiers you're going to conquer? To do that, he has to understand IBM's business inside out. He has to
Right.
understand what are the businesses IBM is in. He needs to understand who are the competitors, what are the areas of growth, and how he can basically scale up and climb. Now, one thing a lot of people ask me is, how do I get a complete bird's eye view of a company's business, its finance, and what exactly is going on? Not complicated. It's very simple. You do not have to go through websites and this pages and those pages. You can certainly go to the company's website, but the most authentic place to learn about a company and its products, especially its competitive landscape, its business, and how exactly it's going to work, go to SEC, Security and Exchange Commission's website, sec.com, and you can look for company filings. And the filing that you have to look for is called 10K. It is company's annual report. Companies by law have to give as much information truthfully as possible, because they don't, they can go to jail. If you look at a company's 10K report, there's a section called business where you can learn about what are the different business a company is in. And then you can look into the financial sections, and there is a section called management discussion and analysis, MD&A, which will give you an idea about different parts of the business. That's, for example, anybody can go and learn about a particular company and what you need to do. Now, within the company, for example, Arvind Krishna grew through the ranks in the research organization, where he learned about new areas the company needs to innovate. And then later, when he started running businesses, for example, he figured it out that cloud computing and artificial intelligence is an area where they need to play. Of course, for that, you have to interact, and it's a lifelong process. By the time you reach that place, you've already done a lot of different things in your life. And then in the process, they, for example, concluded that the way to go forward would be hybrid cloud. And I'll talk about cloud computing later on. Hybrid cloud. And they made a 33 billion acquisition of Red Hat last year, which basically helped IBM catapult into that business. And finally, he succeeded with Genier Omnity. So even when a company looks very big, strategic thinking does not mean that you need to understand every part of the business on every product. You got to understand what are the key industry trends, what are the key things the company needs to do to grow, what are the things the company needs to innovate about, and that's how you do it. And it's a lifelong process. Now, some of you may ask me that, okay, 10K report is a very detailed report and stuff like that. We can go deep into a company. What should I do to keep myself abreast of what's going on in the industry across different verticals, especially in technology, but also across different different areas? One of the best places to do something, which I've done every day for the last 15 years, is just subscribe to Wall Street Journal. It's you can get its online edition. You can also get its paper edition at the home, couple of $100 a year. And they have got the main section of the paper, and there is a section called Business and Marketplace. You can go to the Business and Marketplace section and pick up those sections which are relevant to your industry. I typically lead everything in technology industry. And you start reading it. If you do that for some period of time, especially there's a section at the end called Heard on the Street, which is a very good techno-financial analysis. Over a period of time, naturally, you'll get to understand about different players, their products, how industry is coming up. It's a very authentic source of information. It talks about technology, it talks about company, but it also talks about how the industry is playing out. And why are companies performing in a certain way financially or not. Let me stop here. Does this make sense, Ambika?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, it does. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Really helpful.
Absolutely. Other questions before we move forward?
Hey Tushar, Diman here again. So I think you're absolutely on point with what you said. I mean, when we were part of the consulting company, we used to do 10K, 10Q analysis to not just to understand the competitive landscape, but also to understand what our clients were doing, who was spending more. But the question that I had was, we viewed it from a lens of, okay, where have they been spending? What are the trends in spending in certain areas? So where are they going to be spending more? When you're looking at your own company's 10K or 10Q, how do you align it to say, okay, this is a area which might be underfunded but has potential, so we probably should increase funding here, like seeing the path from the 10K 10Q towards the future?
Absolutely, very good point. So number one, this is an insight which you do not get right away. Again, it takes over a period of time for you to understand your own company. But here is something I want to share with you guys. You can check it out. I'm going to write it here in the chat. It's called BCG Matrix. Since you're from consulting industry, I'm going to talk about this. Every company has got a few cash cows, which means businesses which are actually producing a lot of revenue. For Cisco, it was router and switches for a long period of time, and every company has it. Then there are growth areas. These growth areas are not necessarily where company is right now, but the industry trends, where industry is going, based upon your own public information, you get to know, you get to understand it. What you do is you think creatively how to leverage the cash flow coming from businesses which are doing well to basically turbocharge growth in different growth areas for the company. That's how you think. Now you invest in typically multiple businesses. Some of them turn into stars, you keep them. Some of them turn into dogs, which means they do not go anywhere, you leave them. You look into BCG Matrix, and this is something which a company, especially in high-tech industry, has to do on a continuous basis over a period of time. That's how it basically works. And that is basically the key way to think. Now, how well you navigate this, how well you basically do it, it's a lifelong preparation as a leader. I think somebody has to mute himself or herself. Guys, if you're not speaking, just mute yourself. So that's the process that you have to go through. And BCG Matrix, I just put that in the chat. It's a very good place for you to think strategically about these kind of things. Other questions people have? Okay.
I have one question. Sorry.
Sure, Andy.
As Bipin. Hi, Tushar. So how do the company decide? It's a very complicated thing between acquisition and self-development.
Pardon?
How the company decides between acquisition and self-development of any.
Very good. Very good. Let me explain that to you very clearly, since I've been in some of those roles myself. So, for example, I was in VMware at one point of time, and of course in other companies. Every company has to think like this, okay? There are 3 different ways to grow. So I'm going to make it simple for you, and I'll pick up one line of business, just to keep it simple. So you're looking at the level of the whole company. One key line of business, and if the company is only one, has got only one line of business, that's perfectly fine. You come up with a roadmap for what you want to develop, where you want to go. It's called the roadmap development, okay? Once you develop a roadmap, hey, this is the direction we need to go. You have to think about 3 things in which you can do it. One is you develop it yourself, for which you have to understand the resources that is required, the time it will require to get there. And it also depends upon where you are right now in terms of your product development, your own capabilities, okay? And you have to understand the market opportunity. Second is you do not develop it internally, but you license the technology from outside or do a partnership. It's an inorganic growth, but you don't bring the whole thing inside, okay? And I'll talk about each of them have their own challenges and benefits. The third part is you go and acquire a company outside, okay? Now, when you develop something internally, the advantage is, you can control the resources, the people whom you want to acquire, grow. If you have already developed some product in that area, you can develop it at its own pace, you work your way through it. When you do licensing, it's a very good idea, especially if you think that it's going to take a lot of time for you to develop the product, maybe 18 months, 24 months, 36 months. And the opportunity cost will be a lot because your competitors may basically go and capture the market in the meantime. In that particular case, you go for inorganic growth. Now, inorganic growth can happen 2 ways. One way is to go and you license the technology from outside, or you do a partnership, you start working with it. Now, sometimes that is not sufficient, and you actually have to go and acquire, because people who have partnership with whom you want to do that, they may not be ready. Or sometimes you first do a partnership and then acquire. Acquiring a company outside and bringing it in seems very attractive, but it's very challenging. Ability to acquire companies and integrate them successfully so that they can be part of your organization and you can integrate the product to build different business lines or lines of businesses is not easy. There are a few companies who have done it really well. Cisco is one of them. They grew like this for a long period of time. In late 1990s, early 2000s, they had a very famous person who used to run that particular group. I'm forgetting his name. He's now a venture capitalist, and they did it really well. Then, however, most of the companies, acquisitions have been a challenge. So these are not simple decisions. As a leader, you have to make that call, and you typically just don't go and acquire a company. You basically prepare a business case for it. You take it through the management chain. If the size of acquisition is large enough, it actually goes to the board, and then it gets approved. Now, if the acquisition and then the cost of the acquisition is also important, you can always acquire companies, but if you acquire them at a certain cost, which is very high, then it may not work. So for example, Cisco was very good at spotting companies early on and acquiring them at a very attractive price and then integrating them and building, big businesses around it. For example, they acquired a company called Granite Systems in 1996, which turned out into their Catalyst 6K line of business, which is their switching business. Some of their earlier acquisitions like Crescendo will basically kind of help them build their switching and routing businesses. A lot of these companies, and they have done it well over the period of time. And of course, IBM is trying to build a hybrid cloud business by acquiring Red Hat Linux for 33 billion. So there are different ways you do that, and you have to make a judgment call. How good you are as a leader, these are the times when you get tested. A few big acquisitions or even 1 or 2 acquisitions which do not go well can actually end your career as well. Other questions people have, happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Tushar, I'll just add on to that. So with regards to acquisition, and this I am Deman.
Sure, go ahead. And guys, if it's okay with you, switch on the video when you're speaking so that we know who you are, if you feel comfortable.
All right. Yep, sure. Just give me 1 second. I'll get out of my kitchen. Yes, sir. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so essentially the question that I had is just piggybacking off the previous one. It seems to be I mean, I don't want to derail the conversation, but it seems like it's developing into a nice academic discussion. So, with regards to the previous, some companies doing better at acquisitions than other. Acquisitions in general are very challenging in marketplace, but you mentioned one which has a history of having successful acquisitions.
And this
You
is
mentioned one of,
yeah.
yeah, you mentioned a key ingredient that they do there, that is identifying potential growth companies and then investing in them before they become too big or before it's too
Actually
late.
acquiring them, yes.
Acquiring them. What are some of the other things that companies who grow by acquisition do well than others in the marketplace?
Very good question. So Cisco example I said, first thing is, acquisition is like a relationship. You got to first know what you're looking for really well and not run after things which look attractive. So first of all, you have to figure out where you want to grow very clearly. You got to understand your own capabilities, and you got to get a very good M&A integration system in place. So your own thought process should be very clear. Where do you want to grow? You have a very good idea of your capabilities, and you basically know, and you have a very good M&A integration system in place. And then you basically go after it. Then typically before you acquire companies, you start looking at them early on in the process, and you've got a very good network. For example, Cisco always had an advantage. They are in Silicon Valley, they're headquartered in Silicon Valley. They are the whole Silicon Valley to basically, figure it out and grow over a period of time. And, last but not the least, the company has a culture for acquiring companies and growing them. Some other big companies have a challenge because when they have very strong internal development arms, they are very resistant to getting something from outside and working with it. So there is no right or wrong answers even, but these are the things which basically happen, which we have observed from outside. And myself, having been in doing acquisitions, for example, and when I was in VMware, I looked at these things closely from that particular perspective. Other questions, guys, before we move on to a more interesting and a broader topic? Okay, good. So recently I was having a conversation with a career coach, a friend of mine, and I just pinged him to have a conversation, have a talk with him. So I'm going to turn the focus now on leadership in general. And I had made a quick note of a few things. Yes, I'll come to this in the general. So leadership in general, right? We see people and we very clearly say, oh, he's a good leader, he's a strong leader. And then sometimes we say it's just poor leadership. We see this in corporate world. We see this a lot in politics, a lot in social movements, community activities, non-government NGO organizations, academic institutions. We always see it everywhere. What I wanted to do was I wanted to step back and essentially lay out some of the qualities of a good leader. Okay, 5 to 10, whatever number I can come up with. I'm doing it on fly right now. I don't have notes with me. What are the key things which a leader has, right? And a lot of times people try to find a formula. There's actually no formula. There are a combination of factors which typically make you a good leader, and you typically have some of them in you, some of them not. The first and the core principle of a leader is the person has a very clear vision. He or she knows where they are going. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to pick up upon Sahid a little bit today. He's running this organization very successfully. And since he has given me a chance, I have to keep him happy as well. When Sahid, for example, created FIRSE, he had a very clear vision. He's going to create an organization for people who are divorced or single, and going through the process, and we'll create a support group for them. That's it. It's very simple. You can explain the FIRSE vision in a line. The leader should be able to express what they want to accomplish very clearly. There cannot be any ambiguity in that. The vision cannot be a whole one-page description, because the moment it becomes a long description, you lose people. Pick up simple things, right? When India was going through freedom struggle in 1942, Mahatma Gandhi gave a call from a place called Gavalia Tank in Bombay, and he said, "Karo ya maro, do or die." Simple. Or he made a very simple statement: "We'll fight the battle through truth and non-violence." Simple. It's very easy for people to grasp and follow. Or Martin Luther King, when he started the civil rights movement, very simple. He said, "My dream is to make sure that our kids are judged based on the color of are not just based are judged based on content of their character and not color of their skin. One single sentence, it completely captures the whole civil rights movement. You as a leader, you have a very good. Now, vision does not mean you come up with a solution in place. No. I mean, if there is already a solution and a path to solution, you don't need leaders. You need managers. And I'm going to talk about managers a little later on. Very clear thing. Second, they should have an ability to connect with people, an ability for them to make feel that I am there for you. And for that, the leader needs to have an element of what I call selflessness in it, right? For example, most of us who participate in Syed's organization, we contribute our time, we work with him, is we understand that Syed, first of all, you all connect with him, you can pick up a phone call and talk to him, a small organization, but we know that he's not doing this for his own personal benefit. An element of selflessness is critical. Of course, in corporate systems, it works in a different way. In corporate, they try to align a leader's incentive with that of the shareholders by giving them stock options so that they have the interests are aligned there, and which is the right way to do it, which is perfectly fine. That's a very important thing. You got to know that, you got to figure it out, and you should have an ability to connect with people. People should feel you're one of their own. You cannot have a lot of false ego, and you cannot create walls around yourself. Third thing is leaders should have an ability to have a very strong set of leaders next in line to them. If you're a kind of insecure person who feels that he or she may be overtaken by others, or feels insecure with people around them, you cannot be a very strong leader. Look, if you're going to be grooming up a bunch of people, you know what? Some of them may take your place, but it means you can move to something higher. For example, if Syed started something in New Jersey, came to California, let's say he builds a group of strong leaders in FIRSA organization, and one of them is good enough to, for example, take Syed's place for the Bay Area group that we have, Syed can move up and he can probably start this organization at global level, which has chapters in Paris, London, Singapore, Delhi, and he has got one person each who runs it. That an ability to delegate, an ability to command, an ability to feel secure, to develop a strong set of leaders within you is a very critical part of any organization. I'm picking up India's freedom movement a lot because it's something which we all know. When Mahatma Gandhi started the battle, he got a very strong set of leaders who worked for him. It was Nehru, it was Patel, it was Jinnah, it was Maulana Azad, Rajendra Prasad, the whole battery of leaders who were all good enough to become prime minister or president of the country on their own merit. Very critical when it comes to actually doing it. For those of who have worked in Cisco systems from, let's say, 1990s and 2000s, Cisco had a strong set of leaders in the John Chambers. You had people like Jasri Lal, who ran their security business, who's now CEO of Arista Networks. He had people like Pankaj Patel, who's now a venture capitalist, who ran the business for him. Or, there was this person, I'm forgetting his name, an Italian leader who used to run their M&A group, who's now a venture capitalist. You typically have a strong set of leaders under you on whom you can rely, delegate, and basically scale up over a period of time. The 2 or 3 very critical qualities: your vision, your ability to connect with people and command influence based upon your credibility, your ability to delegate and grow. These are general leadership qualities. First, I talked about corporate leadership. They're very general leadership qualities. Next thing, I was having this conversation with Farhana yesterday, was you should enjoy being around with people. You do not need to be a very social guy personally. For example, I am not. But if you do not like being around with people and you like to connect with people and take a genuine interest in them, it's tough for you to emerge as a leader. Because the challenge is you have to work with people, you have to deal with them and get going. It's a very critical aspect of leadership. That's a very important thing that you have to keep in mind from leadership perspective. Next thing is, you got to have a sense of history and your own capabilities. So Dhiman was asking about, acquisitions and stuff like that, or for that matter, making a company the strategy. In order for you to do strategic thinking, you got to understand what exactly is happening in the world at different places, in your sector, in your area, and what are your own strengths and how you can play into it. It's a very important part, important skill that leaders have. Let me give you 2 very different examples. One is from Microsoft in 2013-14 when Satya Nadella took over, right? Previous to him was Steve Ballmer, and Microsoft was not going anywhere. And Satya, when he came in, he realized a couple of very key trends. Cloud computing was here to stay. Amazon Web Services was coming in. He encouraged Microsoft Azure. He understood that artificial intelligence is going to be the way. He encouraged artificial intelligence product development across the company. He also understood that the world of Windows-centric has come to an end, and they need to have an open architecture, open way to work with. And they collaborated with Google, they collaborated with Apple, and he knew that. He was in a time and place of history where just continuing what Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer did is not going to take Microsoft forward. Very critical for him to understand those capabilities, step back, and then unleash those forces. And Microsoft's market capitalization has gone 4 times. It's not easy to take a company which is worth 200 billion to 250 billion and grow it 4 or 5 times in a period of 5 to 6 years at that level. Did it, right? Take a very different example. When Martin Luther King started the battle for fighting, he was like fighting the civil rights movement, and he was working through that in 1950s and 60s. He looked around to see what has worked and what has not. And he knew that armed revolution is not going to work. So somebody told him about Mahatma Gandhi and how he fought his battle. In 1950s, he actually traveled to India to understand the India's model of freedom fight, how they fought the battle, took those concepts, he came back, and he deployed the very same concepts in civil rights movement, and they succeeded. And the interesting thing is in 2010, when Barack Obama went to India and he addressed joint session of Indian Parliament, he talked about it. He said, I am here because of Mahatma Gandhi. If Mahatma Gandhi was not there, Martin Luther King would have never understood what kind of potential weapon he can use. And if he could not have civil rights movement, blacks would not have, and African Americans would not have an ability to vote. If they did not have an ability to vote, they would not have been able to contest elections anyway, and I would not have been president of America right now. That's a very simple way to look through this. So leaders have a sense of history, they understand their strengths, and they're willing to change the direction based upon what they feel and what they think it works. And I took very different examples from running a company that we see all around right now, which is Microsoft, to running and battling a civil rights movement, which happened almost half a century back. Let me stop here. Love to answer questions that people have, or I just go down my pedantic path of lecture.
Hi, Tushar. This is Gravinder. I just want to say you're so knowledgeable and so inspiring. I got goosebumps hearing some of this stuff because, we all forget sometimes. We totally forget, like, there's a bigger picture to everything. Being a leader, yes, it's glamorous, but then there's so much more to it. I just wanted to say kudos to you. This is such an inspiring discussion. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions people have, and I'm more than happy to talk about it. And it can be about any area of leadership, any level that you want to talk to.
So, hi, this is AZ, and I'll put my my info in the chat, also looking to connect with people. I'd like to know, Tushar, what is your goal from this presentation? Like, this is leadership, what you're doing. I wanted to understand your motivation for this talk.
Very good, and I'll answer that.
Hope to gain.
I'll answer that.
Thank you.
There are 2 or 3 reasons where the reason we are doing it. Number one, I'm going to quote something from Sanskrit, and I know most of you may not know about Sanskrit, but I'll make it a quote. I'll explain to you in English. There's a Sanskrit quote which says, "Apurva ko api koso ayam vidyate tav bharti vaito vridhi mayati che mayati sanchayat." It means that knowledge is an interesting thing. The more you give, the more you learn. If you try to keep it to yourself, you actually start decreasing over a period of time. So first is a very honest with yourself is motive. By sharing with you all right now and understanding, and sharing thought processes, you will also share some thoughts. You'll ask me questions. It's going to help me learn and grow. It's a very critical part. I do this for technology as well. I'm going to talk about that as well. If you're not open to that, then there's a problem. Number 2, as a leader at whatever level I am, I love connecting with people and getting to know them, right? It's evening, I probably would have gone and watched a YouTube and done something else to keep myself busy. This is a much better forum where I can connect with people, learn from them, get to know them, figure it out. And it's a constant process in life of connecting with people and doing it. And third, kudos to Sahid, that as a leader, he has created a forum and an organization, given his own selflessness in bringing us together. I feel that I should also contribute something. And I'm going to call upon my friend Lakshmi, who runs a Power of Now in yoga group. And she has contributed so much to this organization. I have benefited from it. There is a Power of Now book, a WhatsApp group. She shares excerpts from that book almost every day, and I learn from it. So because of people like Sahid or Lakshmi, would people like me feel that if they are doing so much for the community from whatever vantage point they are coming in, you naturally feel motivated to share with people whatever you can. Of course, I can't do this on a one-on-one basis with people, and that's how the community gets formed. But the most key thing here is easy. Some point of time, you should love this just for the sake of doing it. And if I don't, it's like singing. You always don't do it for people. You do it because you love it, and that's where it goes from. Lakshmi, you want to take a minute or two to talk about your Power of Now group? I know I'm going to pick you up upon that, and let people know, because I have learned a lot from that book.
So thank you, Tushar. Thank you for your kind words. So I think a couple of us got together. I don't know how many of you have heard of this book, Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It was the bestseller. And we started the simple book discussion forum, and we've been going through it chapter by chapter. It's kind of evolved as a quasi healing group and a safe place for us to share. We help each other grow better as individuals. So that's one of the activities I'm engaged with at FIRSE. And the other thing is I also teach yoga and run some fitness classes. So that's my way to contribute during the pandemic. And of course, like Tushar says, all this wouldn't have been possible if Shahid had not created the platform. And he has a very democratic leadership style. So thank you, Tushar, for your wonderful comments. And thank you so much. Really enjoying this session on leadership.
Absolutely. And guys, since we started at 6 o'clock, at around 7 o'clock or so, we'll take a couple of minutes break. I need to get some water and stuff like that. Then again, continue. Other questions I can answer for people about the frame of leadership, what motivates you. And one thing I want to be very clear about something, like I'm being very upfront about you. If money is the only goal that you want to go after for a leadership career or for looking for something, even if the money is good in this area, you'll get frustrated very quickly.
Yeah.
Because the amount of tension, amount of pressure that you have to go through, if you do not enjoy it as a character building exercise, as something that you're doing it to grow yourself over a period of time, then you would not be able to sustain yourself, because then your mind will start going in a direction like, hey, maybe I can do something else and make the same amount of money. Maybe I start investing in real estate or become a full-time stock trader. There are very decent and respectable ways to make money without actually playing a leadership role in society. So there has to be something more in terms of what you love, what you like, and then you grow from that as a leader. A very critical aspect that you have to understand. So, power, fame, money, everything comes over a period of time automatically. You don't chase it. Other questions I can answer for people.
One question actually. So you defined this is Ambika. You defined the framework and some of the, highlight characteristics of a leader or qualities of a leader. My question is that out of these, how many are these are something that, some people just are in a way born with it and then they can hone on it, right? They can enhance their strengths. For some people, these may not be strengths. So can they all be learned? And you can still become as good a leader as Satya Nadella or
very good. Let me answer that for you. It's something which, I had myself thought through it over a period of time. Look, there is always a combination. Inherent talent plus training and grooming. Okay. Inherent talent in the sense that there are things which we are all born, which we are good at. And again, me and Farhana, we were having a conversation yesterday, and I will let her speak for a few minutes right now. There was a very interesting quote from somebody who was president of India, Abdul Kalam, who said that if you ask a fish to climb tree, and the fish can try for the whole life, but will always feel that the fish is a failure, right? So you have to understand at some point of time what exactly motivates you, what you're good at. You start with that. That's one thing. Second is your upbringing. So growing up, for example, if somebody is good in singing, and he or she grows up in a family which there is a family of musicians and singers, they encourage their talent. They help them basically, groom it and groom yourself to become better at it. Third is formal training. When you actually get a formal training, it kind of helps you, figure it out and, enhance it over a period of time. And then last but not the least, your life events as you go through and how you basically work your way through that. So I will put myself in a tight spot and I'm going to share a few things with you guys very openly. When I was born and, was growing up, I did have some of these skills naturally. Way back when I was in the 4 years old or 6 year old, I would want to be the class monitor. If there's a cricket team, I'll be the cap. Some of these came naturally. My parents were very encouraging. Coming from a community in Northern India, which is known for leadership as well as for some not that great things as well, it's something which ran in the family. I mean, I have relatives who have been far off relatives who have been chief ministers in India. One of them was prime minister of the country. Unfortunately, not a very liked prime minister. So you naturally do it, and it's something which when you're growing up, people. If you like, I have a very close relative who was an IAS officer, was a minister in Modi's government. It's very. If I would have said somebody I want to tomorrow become a leader and become a Indian equivalent of a federal government minister, people are like, yeah, that's not a big deal. People do it. Upbringing helps you a lot. Third is your educational training. My undergrad degree, when I was in IIT, I was in BHU in Varanasi. It's a place which is a fertile ground for leaders. I had a good lot of opportunity to hone them over a period of time. My MBA kind of helped me as well. And then over a period of time, my career path took me in different directions. But I also want to share with you that sometimes life events can actually kill it. Unfortunately, when I was in a bad relationship, especially in later part of my relationship, it actually destroyed me. I was married to the wrong kind of person and wrong kind of social life. And that was the biggest damage which happened to me. So when I got out of it, I remember the day when I was the person who filed for the divorce, and I was actually signing my divorce papers to file it. One of the first things which came into my mind was, hey, what I will do when I will get rid of this person in my life and move on. And one of the first things which came to my mind was, you know what? I'll go and campaign in elections. That's something which I really love. It's something which is, my old leadership things were coming in. And after I filed for a divorce, got the hell out of that relationship, lo and behold, 9 months down the line, I sought out an acquaintance of mine who was running for governor of California in 2014. Neil Kaskari, he's a Federal Reserve president right now. I joined his campaign. The reason I joined his campaign was not so much about helping him win the election, but to bring out my own leadership skills, which had been killed, which had been destroyed, and I was kind of mentally tortured indirectly in a wrong kind of a relationship, because people who are trying to manipulate you and keep you in a relationship, the first thing they want to do is to kill your personality. In my case, it was leadership. It's done in a very systematic way by those kind of people. So I had to basically get out of it. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is, it's not like it has always been a fair, good ride. It was very good early part of my career, and I did very well in my after my master's and I was doing, and then I went to a very bad phase, but then I got out of it. And when I got out of it, now I'm very conscious about the kind of people I intermingle with and go through that. So the reason I decided to put myself forward is, I'm one of you. And so wanted to share with you how things basically work. Hopefully that addresses your question.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks, Tushar, for putting that perspective out, because not easy to put out, but you're right, meaning, and I think it gives me a lot of encouragement. That's what I would say, is because a lot of times you have links, and you can kind of connect with your own story. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, and I was when we don't have Neeta on the call today. She did a Dil Se with Fir Se event last Thursday, and I mentioned this as well during that particular event, was that when I was going through a tough time in my life in 2013, and so I decided to make a very strong commitment to myself. The divorce is not going to define my life. My strengths will define my life. I took my life in that particular direction. And one of my core strengths is leadership. Doesn't matter how much money I make, I just enjoy doing it. So that is something which we all have to. So you see a lot of people who are coming out of bad relationships, for example, they follow their passion. If they're good in singing, they sing. If they're good in organizing, they organize. If they're good in acting, they do that. The reason they do it is, it's not so much about, living a life. It's a lot about discovering yourself, because that's what basically was killed. And the beautiful thing is, in a good relationship, one of the key criteria which I keep when I'm trying to evaluate and think about my own next life, personal life is, when you are with somebody, does it act like a resonance where both of you basically help each other grow? It doesn't have to be same set of skills. One person can be good in singing, other is very good in organizing. You both can support each other. Or is it something where it's clashing so much that in the name of compromise, you start basically hitting at the core of your personality? Those relationships, not worth living. So, it's just, I know I'm getting to a different direction, but since it's a fair group, it's a fair topic. No relationship is worth continuing if you don't love, live, and grow in it. And growing means that you can basically work upon your strengths and build a life around it instead of just succumbing to pressures of others to keep them happy to sustain a relationship. I'm just sharing perspectives of what I have gone through and what has worked. It may not work for others, but that's fine. Happy to answer other questions people have.
Before we move on
Sorry,
from
come
that,
with the question. Go ahead, Farhana.
yeah, Ambika, this is Farhana. I think that your original question about can you learn some of the skills? I think that there are definitely, especially if you hook up with a good leadership coach, there are definitely tools, assessments, other diagnostics that you can take in order for you to understand what your talents are. What Tushar was talking about, the thing about having the innate talent and then you add the learning is what your strength ends up becoming. There's definitely methodologies out there and formulas that you can take so that you can assess different strength, talent themes that you have, in addition to other assessments about, I mean, leadership is in all different levels too, right? It doesn't have to be CEO per se. It could be leadership in whatever it is that you want to grapple. Like in this group, there's lots of examples. But if you want to get to the core of that and knowing who you are and your strengths, I mean, having a good leadership coach or a good leader executive coach can help you take those assessments. So you have more knowledge about what your innate talents are, your strengths, what you're good at, and helps you on your exploration in that journey. So it's definitely possible. You can learn that stuff.
Great. Thanks, Farhana.
Yeah.
Thank you for making that point.
Makes sense. And one advice I would like to give all of you, which I'm trying with my son, I don't know if it's going to work or not, is a few things you have to keep in mind when it comes to leadership or other talents of your kids. If we all should try to, and I'll try my best when my son grows, as he grows through life, is figure out what they're good at and then see if you can encourage them to pursue that as a career, as a profession. It's not easy. With us, when we were growing up in India, it was not easy because we had a very cookie cutter system. You become a doctor, an engineer, or a few key professions, or else it does not go anywhere. In US, we have the advantage. You can pick any profession and you can make a living out of it. It's a very key thing. Other thing is, so peer pressures sometimes take you in a different direction because people don't understand your skills. So when I was my undergrad, a lot of people, it was a technical school, it was engineering school, a lot of people just did not understand what leadership is. And I still struggle when I organize leadership groups or events for my undergrad alumni. Most of them are too technical. They just don't get it what leadership is. And they would disparage me, like, are to neta hai, and stuff like that. And I used to wonder if something is wrong with me. Now, when I look back and I realize that they just did not get it. And then over a period of time, when I started succeeding, leveraging those skills, they always, of course, felt resentful because they never understood me. As parents, we need to keep a close eye to make sure our kids understand and feel comfortable in their skin, they feel comfortable with their strengths, and we encourage them to pursue a career in that particular direction and not feel victimized or vulnerable based upon peer pressure. So it's one of the biggest gifts we can give to our kids. College 529 plans can only do so much in long term. So US citizen, you can always get money to take as a loan to study. So, a bigger gift for the kid is for him or her to basically understand what their strengths are and build around it. I think that's a key thing, the role that they can play.
And I should mention too, there is a Strength Finder version for kids as well. So it's the same kind of thing you would take in a corporate setting to come up with your main talent themes and your strengths. They do have a kid version as well, and that's pretty fun.
Which makes sense, and we typically don't do that.
Question, Farhana, is that available like online, or is it like a paid thing?
It's through Gallup, and I'm pretty sure you do have to pay for it. I'll look into the kid version if you're interested, or even the non-kid version if you want. I can follow up with you on that.
That would be great. Thanks, Farhana. I'll follow up on it.
Sure.
But guys, go ahead.
Have you taken a break, or we can open for questions?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about one more thing, and then we'll take a break for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
I can come back and continue the conversation.
Okay.
As a parent, and I want to say it again, personally opening up, as a parent, remember one thing, that your role in life will not end, once they go to college and stuff. As your kids go through ups and downs in your career, in their life, personal, professional, the best thing you can do every time in their life when they're going through a tough time and you're trying to support them is to help them regain their personality again and again. So when I was going through a bad patch, my parents moved here and they been with me most of the time. My dad used to go on long walks with me in 2013-14 time frame, just listening to me about me recounting my life when I was in undergrad, what I used to do, when I used to go to different IITs to participate in debating competitions. He was helping me regain who I am, and after which my career took over. So, my dad's role was there when I was growing up. He played a role again after my divorce to help me, come out of it. Or he has accompanied me to different events which I've organized in the community, within the IIT community or otherwise, just to be there to show his support. And trust me, that particular role the parents can play sometimes is much better or bigger, than the number of houses you have built for them, and retirement plans you have created for them, or the kind of mindset a lot of people have. Because if you are successful in giving that to your kids every time in life when they're falling down, that's going to have a much better impact, than the bank balance. So let's do this. It's 7:02 p.m. right now. Why don't we get back at around 7:05, 7:06? I'll be back in a few minutes, and we have 27 people who have joined. The numbers will keep increasing. If everybody has not come back by 7:06, 7:07, I will engage in one-on-one conversations with people, and then around 7:10 we'll start the session again. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Why do you want to, Tushar? Why do you want to, leave this thing? Let it be you drink water and come. People can talk their own stuff.
Absolutely. That's a good idea. Please.
Continue the session. Don't discontinue it.
Absolutely. So yeah, you guys can keep chatting. I'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, because
Thank
there's
you.
so many things to chat.
Thank you.
Farhana, this is Gurvinder. Can you hear me? Hello, Farhana.
You might be taking a break. You can ask a generic question also, Gurvinder.
Yeah, I was really interested in that kid, assessment or personality understanding for children. I've never looked into that. My kid is 10, but I think Tushar just put a really good point out there, and even for Hana too. The best thing any friend can give you is understand your personality. I mean, that's such a valuable experience especially when you go through tough times, and all of us have gone through tough times, and we probably still will, and our children will too, because that's just life. That's just how life is. Mm-hmm. So that seems very interesting. I like to know more about that.
So I did a Google search, and I believe I found what Farhana was mentioning. It's Strengths Finder for Children by Gallup. If you look in the chat,
okay,
I think that is what it is.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, most welcome, Auntie Google.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know with something like that. What is the right age to even do that? Like, I know you said you have a 10-year-old. I have a 6-year-old going on to 60. Wonder what the right balance there is. Like, I'm sure we need to give them a little time to explore everything first before they find something that they enjoy or like, and then kind of
that is a good point. Yeah. I think you would know. I could see my 10-year being ready, just so I feel like, I mean, being 6 and 10, even though it's only 4 years apart, but their maturity level goes up significantly. Like it really makes a big difference. But that is a good point to consider. I agree with you.
The high schools in South Bay, they give the students this and another test called WARC, which is how do you learn best in freshman year. So there is already something in some of the school systems to help students discover it.
That's very good to
I
know.
think I would make one comment on what Tushar was earlier saying, that, play to your kids' strength, which basically I think boils down to a lot of us is as they're growing up, especially when they're younger, and then that's how you form the bond, is just listen to them, because I learned over the years as a high schooler and a middle schooler. So I learned with my high schooler, the more I listened, the more I learned about her, and then I was able to guide her in the direction that I knew that she would enjoy those activities, and she would thrive in them as well. And a lot of times I did find that, as a kid, you don't know. And I'll just give an example with her, where she was a very shy kid initially when she was in elementary and preschool. But then based on our conversation and with her teacher and everything, I knew she had leadership qualities. So I slowly and steadily started making her do public speaking, and we did theater. She loved dance. We did dance, and I would put her in solo dance and all that stuff. And then eventually came a time where I said, do a summer camp in speech and debate. And she resisted. She was like in 7th grade actually. And she resisted like anything. And I said, okay, you know what, just join. You can just not go after 2 days, and that's perfectly fine. And thank God she did. And she loved it so much that camp just turned around her life completely, meaning she figured out the niche that she wanted to do in life. And now she's thriving in that. And actually she's going to, by the way, if any of your kids are interested, we are trying to set up shelter in place for kids who are interested in public speaking. And she's going to help out in there.
Exactly. Like parenting is such a hard role. It's like finding the right balance between encouraging and pushing. And at the same time, I have a little bit more experience than you that listen to me and give it a try. Like it's such a fine balance between various things that it's hard to sometimes know, okay, this is now pushing them a little too much. Now it's a time to back off. Now, or this needs to be they need to be exposed to this just so that they can broaden their avenues a little bit. So it's not an easy role.
And this is such a beautiful thing. I'll just share a few things from my own life and growing up. I was around 9 years old when my dad took me to a first public speaking event. I was not very thrilled about it, but once I got into it slowly, and the reason public speaking is important is ability to stand up in front of a group of people to express your thoughts very coherently, especially if it's a debating group where you take up a position for or against, is something which is needed and required no matter what career path you basically pick up. At every level of the organization, you have to, if you go through it, you need it. And public speaking builds a lot of confidence inherent within you over a period of time. That's very good. Go ahead.
And it's a very acquired skill. I know the first time I went for a debate, and this was more in high school when I went for a debate. I was physically sick after that. Like I was like, that was so much anxiety and so much tension, because in that debate format, you had that for the motion, against the motion, and then you had their extempore and rebuttal. So it was so much pressure, but it was something that it's definitely a learned skill. Like if I had my way, I would have chickened out after the first event.
Makes complete sense. Another thing which somebody was basically telling was, you push your kids, but don't push them a lot. That's something I have to learn, of course. My son is only 10.5 years old. But, sometimes Indian parents, especially in India, the way they do it is they take it a little too far. And if they take it a little too far is when they start looking at their kids as a reflection of their ambitions, and they want them to do something which they could not do in their life. Does not work.
Tushar, can you talk to my mom after this?
So
I think it might be too late now, regardless.
No, it may not be too late, because a lot of times parents till date feel that no matter what their kids do, if they've not taken up a career path which they wanted them to take, they somehow feel that their kids are not a success. And it gets reflected in their body language, sometimes directly or indirectly. And it's not a good feeling which kids get there. And that's not a place I'm opening up a lot right now, because my parents are around right now in my house. So you have to understand, it's something which the big disservice that we do to our kids over a period of time. So what needs to happen is we need to basically think about it like this. I don't play instruments, But every instrument, you tune the wires. If you can tune the wires in such a way that you can strike that particular wire in your kid, which is the natural frequency of the kid, that's going to be much better than you trying to force a frequency from outside. And I'm going to give you a very extreme example of somebody very capable, very smart, and his dad took him in a direction which did not work out for him. There's a person, I'm not going to give his name, still in touch with him, the son of a faculty member from my undergrad school in India, the IIT which I went to. This kid was really smart. In 1986, he was ranked 9th or 10th in the whole country. The IIT Joint Entrance Exam, he went to IIT Kanpur, did undergraduate in computer science. In 1990, the best path forward for him was to come and do a master's in US. Do a PhD, the guy would have very well succeeded. His dad wanted him to become a government servant, an IAS officer. In 1992, in 2 years, he was selected in the exam. He was ranked 3rd in the country. He got so many marks. He was good at getting marks. And he was posted in West Bengal, nothing wrong with that. He was there as an IAS officer for 5 years. He did not like the career. His dad used to be more happy about his son's job than the person himself. In 97, he took a study leave from the job. He came to Ohio State University, did a master's in 1 year, and he joined a company in Florida, and he's been there for the last 20 plus years, and he's happy. So, I mean, for that guy, always told me later on that he wasted 7 years of his life between 1990 and 97 preparing for that exam and doing the job. And his dad was, of course, very sad when he left the job. And that's the key thing which we have to understand.
So
Tushar,
go on. Somebody wants to ask a question, Gurvinder?
No, go for it. No, it's okay. Go for it.
So, you touched a lot about parenting. Just wanted to shift gears a little bit. Satya Nadella is one of my favorite leaders, Microsoft. And he really turned around the company, right? From how Steve Ballmer was to how he changed it. And it's very difficult to do these transformations in large companies which have this ingrained culture in them. What do you suggest? Like, I'm in a similar situation in my company where you have to turn around the business in a certain area. How can we turn around the business in a certain area?
Right. The first and foremost thing is this needs to start at the top. The CEO, the Chief Technology Officer and Chief Product Officer have to together work and think about a new way to do. So let me pick up your company, which since I know it really well, Juniper Networks. So the CEO, Rami, has been there for a long period of time, started as an ASIC design engineer and has been there forever. Manoj started in Cisco, then moved to Juniper, but he's been a long timer. Now, Juniper is in a business, and I'm picking up that business because a lot of people understand here, has been in hardware business forever, in routers and switches. Unfortunately, everything is now moving to the cloud and in the software, networking as well. So VMware came up with a new suite of products called NSX. They have hyper-converged infrastructure. The networking, the big cloud providers like Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud, they have their own suite of products and networking on the cloud. Juniper needed to develop products in cloud, in software. One of the key things they have done recently is they've hired a new CTO. His name is Dr. Raj Yavatkar. I personally known him for the last more than 20 plus years. And he was I actually conducted a virtual fireside chat with him this Saturday for my alumni group, which I run. He has been in software. He's a person who understands both hardware and software really well. They've got the right person. And it seems your company is right now going through a transformation. What they're doing is they're putting a new plan in place, they're restructuring and reorganizing. That's going to be discomforting to a lot of people. Knowing Raj for 20 plus years is going to get through it. If the leadership itself, the existing leadership does not have those skills, they need to get somebody from outside to bring about that, being that agent of change. And they are doing it. If you don't do it, then over a period of time, the company will die. It's a very clear thing. There's no other alternative here. So now with that, it needs to now percolate down. So, there's an old saying, right? Visionary need builders and builders need protectors. So Raj is a visionary. Now, next level of leadership at the vice president level and below have to imbibe that culture and live through it to kind of help them implement that change within the company. Mm-hmm. And below that, you go down to the next level and needs to go down slowly and slowly to the down. Now, as an employee in the company, if you're in a group which you feel is not making a turnaround or change, then you need to align yourself with people in the group or the companies who are willing to do that. And you can basically be with them over a period of time and see how you can grow your career. It becomes a lot of mindset change that the company has to go through. Now, the good news is a company like Juniper, which has got roughly 5 billion in revenue and 9 or 10 billion in market cap, does have some money on the balance sheet. They do have a decently good enough cash flow. They can still survive and get through it. The challenge is if the company goes down the wrong path for a long period of time and they start getting into a negative zone, then they have to rely upon layoffs. It's a very quick downward spiral from them. So what you're discussing is actually happening in your company, since I know those people, and hopefully over a period of another 1 year or so, it will have to go through, and it's certainly a very painful transition. Certainly makes sense. Go.
Cool,
You're saying something?
Sorry, you're breaking up.
Yeah, I have one question.
Sure.
Hi, Tushar.
Sure.
So
What's your name, Bipin?
Bipin, yeah, this is Bipin. How? So you made a very good point about the observation on Shahid. I also had a very similar observation.
It's not Sahid, it's Sahid. Sahid means he's gone. He's still there, not a martyr. It's Sahid, right?
Yeah, I just tell him the. So one thing is that, yeah, the positive aspect of the leader, he has to be a good visionary, less ambiguity, strategic and all. So when I came to Bay Area, I know there's a lot of emphasis in here. I also lead a team, a lot of emphasis in here for the emotional intelligence aspect of it, the cultural fit, those are all things matters a lot. So how is a good leader along with being so for example, like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, they are very good, perfect visionaries, but they are very difficult persons to work with. I've just heard.
Right.
So how
Let
are you
me
gonna
let me put some thought through that. First of all, people like Larry Ellison, Steve Ballmer, Elon Musk, they're exceptions. They started their own company and they have been there, but they're very centric in nature. Steve Jobs, if any of us were in that particular category, we would have taken a very different career path. So I'm talking about people who are not in that particular category, people like us, right? So emotional intelligence, and something which I have myself struggled with and I've been trying to still pick up. So I'll give you a specific example of somebody whom I've seen succeeding, and he is in Silicon Valley. And I can quote him right now because he's a good guy. The current CEO of a company called Informatica, Amit Walia. I've known him for 25 plus years. He was an undergraduate in my undergrad school, senior to me. And his undergrad degree was in ceramics engineering, nothing to do with computer science, electrical. First job was in Tesco in a steel plant. And then he worked for Infosys for a couple of years, came to US through a body shopper, went to Kellogg for his MBA, worked in McKinsey, then joined Symantec and went to Informatica. Now, this person, he's smart. He understands technology. But a few key things which I have seen him behaving or implementing throughout his life, which I want to share with you is, number one, the person is extremely empathetic when it comes to dealing and working with people. I'll give you a very simple example. When I was in undergrad, he probably would know everybody in the college who was participating in college cultural festivals and extracurricular activities and doing great. His ability to make you feel the most important person when he's talking to you is amazing. He understands and connects with people really well. Even when he lays off people, he does not throw them out. He understands their personal circumstances and provides them with enough resources to make a career transition. Second, he is somebody, when he walks into a room, people want to be around them. He's got a magnetic personality. People love to be around that. And that is something, of course, some of it is born, some of it comes through. But remember one thing, and Farhana was telling me yesterday when I was having some conversations with her, and I will let her contribute to this in a minute, is an ability to listen to people. A lot of times, including me, we love to share our thoughts, we love to share our stuff, but we fail to empathetically listen to others, because till you listen to them, you don't really understand what's going on, what's the challenge, and you cannot address the real pain points that people have. So that's the only way we can win them over. And third is, look, remember one thing which is very generic in life. People never respect you for what you have earned, what you've achieved. People always respect you for how you make them feel, how you respect them. Very simple thing of life, people don't understand it. But what I would like to do here is, since you're talking about emotional intelligence, I'll request Farhana to share her thoughts on ability to listen to people as a leader, as an individual. Farhana, why don't you share your thoughts around that?
So I think going back to empathy, right? Number one, I agree with Tushar that is one of a trait that everybody gravitates towards. And part of being empathetic is being able to listen actively with engagement. So there's lots of tools that you can use to hone in on those skills as well. Sometimes you have that natural capability, and learning how to listen and how to know people, really understand what a person is all about, what they like, how they want to be recognized. A lot of it comes from asking very pointed, like curiosity questions, and allowing for the space for that person to be able to provide a response in whatever fashion it is that they're comfortable with. Taking the time to invest and get to really know somebody through questions, active listening and engagement is all stuff that you can learn through, certain exercises and certain tools that you can have to better those skills if you're already naturally good at it. Some of the people that are really charismatic have that innate talent, and then learning how to employ that makes them extraordinary. But even aside from that, I don't think you have to have that necessarily. There are ways to gain emotional intelligence through certain exercises. But in the end, when you compare all of those exercises together, they really are about asking curiosity questions, really being engaged, asking people what it is that they like to do, why they are in a certain area, how they've gravitated toward that, knowing their strengths, knowing their skills to help them develop, and most importantly, creating an atmosphere around them that they can succeed in. If you create an atmosphere that they end up being challenged in that atmosphere, they're never going to feel empowered and a sense of successfulness. But if you create an atmosphere where they can actually utilize their strengths and their skills, then they feel more empowered to take more chances and grow and develop. All of that comes into the emotional intelligence part, but it takes a lot of investment and time in the people and liking that part of it. You have to really enjoy knowing people and matching their skill set up to the right type of job to get the most out of them and to maintain those relationships. So if that's something that is really important to you, it's not hard to learn those skills.
Yeah, that's good. Along with that empathy, it's also like one of the things that comes like, other than the empathy and grooming the person, it's about the way you have behaved, your charisma, like, your actions are like, reflecting among people, maybe even in your tone and all. That also comes under that. That's called self-awareness. And yeah.
So this, for Hannah and Tushar both, I have a question. I feel like the problem I have is when I listen to people, sometimes you have conversations and you realize that this person is really not at the same capacity as you are, meaning that no matter what you tell them, they already have an answer. They know it all. There is a problem, but they don't really want to fix the problem. And I feel like I'm one of those people, or I've come to the point where I just stay quiet or walk away from the situation, because I feel that person has to be receptive. If you feel they're not receptive, then there's no point. But I also what I hear from you and Tushar is, a leader in general, of course you want to be empathetic. That's a great quality to have. And then also, listening to people, like, no offense, like, I feel a lot of times there's a lot of BS goes on, right? People are just so confused. Not that we're not, we all have our levels. And then sometimes I feel when people are so confused, I tend to, and I'm going to admit this, stay away, because it's like messing with my head at this point. It's unnecessary things that I need to deal with. So do you have any suggestions or anything you can add on to that? I mean, I'm sure there's some things that I probably personally have to work on. But that's something I find quite challenging. I feel very few people are receptive to hearing the right things and doing the right things.
I have one question. Is this the person that you work with professionally that you can't avoid, or like you can, like, basically ignore the person?
Oh, no, nothing work-wise, but I'm just saying in general, when, like, I guess a lot of this experience is coming from just dealing with people, like, maybe on First Day, for example, right? Just to give you an example, I feel like, sometimes people are not really receptive, and it's better to kind of like, not say anything, right? I mean, you don't want to be putting so much time and effort into things where it's not good use of your time, because I feel like everyone has their own they take their own time to come to a place in life where they are ready to change and improve things, right? Does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah,
I just
it makes
like it's just a common question. I just see it all the time. And like, okay, so even people that this is nothing work related, but when I see a leader, to me, a leader is like Barack Obama, right? I see somebody who's good in personal life and professionally, not just in terms of how much money they make, but if you look at those type of people and look at their qualities, and I know that he's extremely empathetic. I mean, these are people with good values, and I want a role model after them. And I think it's amazing. But at the same time, I sometimes come into these personal issues that I just can't deal with BS. I'm like, oh my goodness, get me away from this. So,
Gurvinder, I first, so empathy first, right? I understand. I've been in that situation. I don't think that what we're saying is that being empathetic also means compromising your vision, your time. It's not about being empathetic is not about being compromising necessarily. So I'll keep it out of personal stuff, but at work, if I know what somebody's strengths are, I know what it is about them that makes them tick, what's their jam. If it's not jiving, then I encourage them to leave. It's not something I keep putting up with all the time. So you can still be kind and firm, and you can still have limits and boundaries. If they are carrying on too long, I don't feel uncomfortable saying, this is how I want the conversation to go. I want your genuineness here. We've got 5 minutes. We need to stay in this time period. I feel like if we're not going to get to a resolution within this time period that I've set, then we're not going to get there. That honesty and creating boundaries keeps me from feeling like I'm getting sucked into a situation that I don't want to get into. And then to have really open conversations about maybe this isn't the right fit. Let's see what we can do.
That
I
makes
like that.
complete sense. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And now here I will add a perspective, and I'll divide our life into 3 different areas: a personal life, a social community life, and professional life. And each of these areas, you deal with these kind of people in 3 different ways. At work, it's actually easy. There are 3 different kind of people you interact with in work. People whom you influence, which means people who report to you directly, indirectly. With them, you can set the parameters very clearly, lay it out in front of them. That guides, this is how we want to basically make it work. This is the direction we want to take this. And this is how we basically think it's going to, it's much easier to do that. And if it's not working, then over a period of time, those people basically leave the organization. People who are above you, is superior, it's a much more patient approach. You have to first align yourself and understand what kind of way they are thinking, and then slowly, align yourself, do it in a more slow pace, and then get their ears, is what Farhana says, connect before you correct. You connect with them, understand it, get through it. However, if you feel that over a period of time, the leadership of the company is such that they don't just listen, they do whatever they like, well, then you make a decision whether that's the right place for you to basically work or take your time and talent somewhere else. And I always tell people, when jobs are not working out, and it has not worked out for me in a lot of different places, the first thing you try to do the job the right way. And if doing the job the right way is not working out, then you find the right job. That can be a different job in the same company. It can be a different company. It can be a different industry. I've done all 3 of them. That's the job side of it. In personal life, we all have limited time. And we got to be with people with whom we love and enjoy spending time with. If you're with a group of people over a period of time who don't seem to listen, who have their own way, they're very stringent and stuff like that, well, you certainly do not go along with them in your life. You basically withdraw yourself, and you want to be with people whom you are, and you can make that call much easily. Now, of course, there are relatives and stuff like that whom you can't do much about, but you'll see that over a period of time, you basically figure out a way to work. I mean, I'll give you an example. There's a family WhatsApp group where I have huge number of my cousins and aunties and stuff, and they added me to that WhatsApp group. It's complete wastage of time. God knows what they're discussing for the whole day. So the first, when they added me in 2013, 14, started giving them some serious lectures about life. There was a lot of resentment. And then I quit the group. I'm like, God knows. Then they recently again added me. And my mom gave me very good advice. He said that, look, you don't have to get into these discussions. At the end of the every day, you just delete the discussions, right? Delete the messages on the WhatsApp. Just be there, because if you leave it, it's discourteous to them. And once in a while, if somebody's birthday is there, you basically wish them. That way they feel that, hey, this guy is at least engaged. That's it. So I don't have to basically understand and agree with them and basically, work my way through that. In community life, it becomes a little tricky sometimes, especially in organizations. But the good thing is about community life is, you do not have to be with the same group of people. Like, for example, I love talking about these kind of events and these kind of leadership events, or I like Power of Now book and all. So for example, in FITSE, I'm in very limited groups. So, me and Farhana, we're thinking of starting a leadership group. We'll see where it goes. But Lakshmi's Power of Now group is very good. Yoga, I joined. I do it on my own time, so I'm not very active. Once in a while, I've participated in discussions group, but many other groups I have never been part of. Or for example, even the home group, I don't follow it that regularly. So I'm still part of FITSE, but you selectively basically work with or engage with people whom you have a match of frequency. You do not have to bring about a change in society here in terms of changing how people are. I mean, people are of different types. They'll work your way through. I'm just trying to help share with you guys some tips which I found useful. And I'll tell you where it starts going in a wrong direction. Again, I'll bring up my own personal life. In last few years of my marriage, not only I was married to a wrong person, because of her personality and the kind of social people she attracted to, and her friends and her family, they were like the worst kind of people I would have been spending time with. And every weekend I used to meet with them, and I never liked it. One of the first things which I did after filing for a divorce and getting rid of that particular relationship is I checked out all of those people from my life, starting with Facebook. Out. And then I created a whole new life of myself by engaging with my undergrad alumni, creating new organizations, new institutions, and got in touch with a new set of people. So the point I'm going to make you is, you have to be careful also if it starts damaging your life, in which case you have to put a break to it and then work your way through that. Hopefully that gives you a perspective, helps you answer some questions about how things are and how things basically work around. So if people don't have other questions, I would like to bring up the next topic, which is very, go ahead.
This is Abhinav. I want to ask a question in lines of some of the things that we discussed right now, right? So we're talking about leaders and leadership styles, and, centric or influential or emotional intelligence and all of that. Whatever type of leadership, right? These people are leaders. These people have made a name for themselves. They have had a vision, and they've taken their organizations and people in a certain direction, right? What are some of those key, I guess, influencing factors or skills, or whatever those skills are? What are some of those things that they have or they do that sort of helps people, the next in line or the entire organization, buy into their vision and then sort of, move the company in the direction that they want to go?
Okay, I'll answer your question in a slightly different way. Okay, so a lot of times, not you, but others are looking for specific tips or what I call pills to figure out how to get through this. It doesn't work like that. I'll tell you how it works. So in last 8 months or 9 months, I've lost roughly 25 plus pounds. And if you ask me what I did, they're not specific set of steps. I completely changed the way I live and think. Not much of partying, which I never did anyways. Cutouts, even simple things like Coke, walk a lot. I engage with people like you all, positive thinking, got all nonsense out of my brain. Read books like Power of Now, completely changed myself. Okay. People like that, they just lead a different life. So first thing that they do is they believe in vision themselves. They're not going to BS with people. And to build up that vision, when it's something which is inherently within you, when you are believing in it, it's very easy to convince people. Okay. That's the first thing. Believe in it yourself. For example, I'm going to pick up a different example, but Mahatma Gandhi, right? He said we should lead a simple life. He actually led a simple life, right? He wore nothing practically and went around with a lathi, right? He said that, we should not attack. It's okay if people, attack us. We'll go through that, but we'll defeat them. He did it. He took batons on his own chest and went to jail. So you basically become a model of whatever you are preaching. That develops credibility and genuineness, right? It's like some parents would do is they get up in the morning at 6 o'clock and they ask their kids to study, and they go to sleep themselves. Does not work. It does not work with me. I mean, my son gets up at 7 or 8 o'clock, and typically my dad is teaching him, and I keep sleeping. He used to keep sleeping till 9 o'clock in the morning. And my son will come and tell me, Dad, I'm studying. You are sleeping. Not cool. And then I'm like, no, this is not working out. He's not going to get up and start studying if I am sleeping. So you have to basically be a role model. Okay. Second, an element of selflessness and a desire to, and a genuine feeling that you're going to be there for people who are working for you. Okay. So some 24 years back, somebody told me this when I was in India. I was interviewing for MBA school. Says this thin line dividing between managing people and manipulating them. Manage them, let us lead them, don't manipulate them. Look at those people as individuals with careers, aspirations, and help them grow in it. Okay. The moment they find that this person is and he's the right person, he's going to work his way through it. The moment people feel that you're going to be there to take credit for their work, but if things are going bad, you're going to dump them. People perceive it. If you're like kind of person who throws them under the bus, people are not going to be there for you. It's a very critical aspect of leadership. You own up failures, you give credit of success to others, and this happens at every level of organization. You can do it at every level of organization. You can be manager of 5 people or a CEO of 500,000 people. Happens at every level. People perceive it. Third thing, which is, when people interact with you, right? I mean, I'm going to bring up a name of a person was not a very popular name for reasons, but I've heard this. People like Bill Clinton, when they met with somebody, you are the most important person at that time, and you'll feel that. Now, of course, he was a politician, he was good at doing that for different reasons. But as a person, when you're interacting with people under you, you got to respect them, take a genuine interest in life. I was expecting somebody to join here, and she did not. I mean, she's been busy. She works in Lakshmi's company, Surbhi. She is part of some of our groups. She's a senior, product management leader in Juniper. She was in Google. And recently we were having some conversation in a group, and she told us that somebody in her team, who's got a very small baby and wife, and they have a lot of stuff. And the person had to travel a lot, part of his job, right? So when she met this person's wife, he actually gave her business card and phone number to his wife and said that if he's traveling, you get into trouble, you call me. And knowing her, she actually will do it for her. The point is, do you basically do this? These things are very important, very critical. So number 1, believe in the vision and practice it, what you are preaching. Number 2, be ready to own up failures and give credit for success. And number 3, genuinely respect people and take care of them. It will work out. If you do, and these are all requires a lot of effort. You can't do it, unfortunately, over a period of time, it will become a transactional relationship. You can run an organization, you can't transform.
Good. Sure, I had a question.
Sure.
Hey, Devan here. And this is again in line with some of the things that you said about having a second line of leadership and developing them and bringing them. There are history and I mean corporate history, political history, and maybe even startups and stuff is littered with examples where a founder's vision is overtaken. You have the second line of leaders and they have a completely different vision, and then the founder's vision is completely overtaken by the natural successors. Is it worth protecting a vision, or if so, how do you protect a vision from being overtaken?
Right. So let's step back and think through this, right? A vision, like our own personal life, needs to evolve with passage of time. Okay. And based upon competitive landscape, industry is going, what people are doing, you have to tailor it accordingly. So the vision cannot be a stationary thing. It evolves with circumstances, with people. And if you're an effective leader, you actually, as Farhana said, you would be listening to people who are next in line in command. And if their thought process was diverging from your thought process, then you should have been smart enough to capture that as part of your vision. And that's the flexibility you need to sow and then take people in that direction. What probably has happened is person at the top thinks that he or she knows the best, and then he's not listening to the person, or he or she is not listening to the person next in line. Then over a period of time, for example, in case of startups, the VCs would come over and take over, and the CEO is thrown out or is made a chairman or a CTO, and the other people in line basically take up the position. But I also want to highlight a couple of things here. It's a very interesting dynamics of life, which is much deeper. In order to start a company, you got to firmly believe in something. You can't be a dilly-dally kind of a guy. I will do this, I will do that. And that's a very critical part of a leader. In order to start and move people in a particular direction, you got to be strong enough to push them through in a direction. However, over a period of time, you also need to show the flexibility and agility to change if required. It's very difficult to do this. Second, some of the startup founders are good at innovating technology, but they're not good at scaling up a company, which requires a different kind of leadership than just bringing together a few group of people to develop the first version of product. That's a specific topic in itself, which will require a different 2-hour session in its own. And those kind of factors basically come into play. So I have known people who have been replaced as CEOs of startup companies. I have known people who have replaced startup CEOs as well, and they've all been good friends of mine. And I can very well observe and see over a period of time what basically triggered one transition versus the other.
Makes sense. That is very well put. I mean, in addition to having a vision, you also have to keep your finger on the pulse of the company and change accordingly.
So what I will do is I'm going to be sharing something on the screen, and I want to refer you guys to books, and I'm going to share the book and I'm going to talk about that in a minute.
Hi, Tushar. I have a question, if you don't mind.
Sure, Milind.
Yeah. So at a certain level, when you start managing like a big team, there are 20 things at any given point of time. So you're never working on a one task like an individual performer. And I was researching some things like how to be productive at work. And one thing they advise you, one thing everybody advises you is not to multitask. But this is something that you cannot avoid. So how do you think executives work? Do they multitask? How how frequently they do it, and what is the right balance between multitasking and not?
Yeah, I'll answer your question in a minute. Give me a second.
Sure. Thank you. It's awesome, by the way. Thanks, Tushar. It's very useful.
He'll answer your question while multitasking.
Yes, kind of. So step back and think, okay? Number one, what goes in minds of these people, and I've seen some of them working closely, and I've been in those situations at a smaller level. You got to have, number one, an ability to prioritize automatically based upon the vision and the goals, okay? You have to do that. Second, in terms of multitasking, you do have multiple streams of thought processes running in your brain, not necessarily conflicting with each other, okay? But one thing which I have learned from people is, and one of my close friends who has been a CEO for multiple different companies, and I organized a leadership summit for my own undergrad school 4 years back. Leaders are present in the moment where they are, okay? So for example, if any of us, me, Farhana, a lot of things are going on in our life right now, but you guys are the most important thing. I might get a call, I might get something, and I may have to take a break to do that, and may have to attend to it. But for this time, I have to be with you guys to make the best out of it. Okay. So there is certainly an element of multitasking inherently going in life. At the same time, you know how to prioritize and give attention to stuff which are there at that particular time. Now, you also need to have an ability to, over a period of time, delegate, but keep a control over what's going on. That way, you are not putting your time and energy into something which can be done by others. For example, I'm right now running second half planning on one of the initiatives which probably will require dozens of resources. And we are trying to get a better definition of the deliverables for second half of 2020. My right-hand man is a technical lead who is right now leading that effort, and I do trust him. But I'm going to have a meeting on Wednesday to understand where they are and then give direction to people. That's how you have to basically do that. Of course, some of this is acquired skills, some of these are natural skills, but you should be enjoying it, over a period of time. Dhiman, we can just see smoke coming out. Are you smoking something or are you drinking something hot? He's mute right now. Anyway.
So, this is my teapot. I was getting some tea for the night ready.
Okay, got it. I was thinking you're like smoking something, which is a little bit interesting.
Hookah. Yeah, I've been known to do that, right?
Very good.
Get on Zoom calls with people and start my
By the
hookah.
way, we do have those kind of groups as well. Shahid can tell you can join those as well. People
I'm sure. Knowing Shahid, I'm sure.
So coming back to you, Milind, these things have to be done, but very critical part is you got to enjoy it. You've got to love it, right? And it's a very interesting ability to take accountability without, doing everything with your own hand. And if it's something which bothers you, and a lot of times I've seen people after getting to a certain level, they start craving for individual, contributor role, or they want to be with a very small team of people. Nothing wrong with it. They are meant for a different kind of role. They're meant for a different kind of career. And technology industry in Silicon Valley, the good news is there's a good career path for all of them. There are people on technical ladder who just rise to the career in that particular way. Of course, if you want to rise to the management ladder or be a leader, then those qualities have to be there. There's no other way. Good. So guys, I wanted to bring up two things I want to share with you all. So there is an author, his name is Simon Sinek. I'm going to be sharing my screen. So when I joined VMware, it was somebody which was introduced to me by my own manager, amazing leader, Sumit Dhawan. You can check him out. There's VP GM in VMware, and he was even startup CEO for some time. So this is a book called Start With Why, How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action. Very simple book to read. It's not only about leadership, it's about life in general. You've got to think first, why do you want to do something? Whether for pursuing a career path, changing a job, guiding your kids. This is a very critical thing that you need to think through. And second is another book. It's called Leaders Eat Last. The first book I will advise you to read is Starting With Why, and the second book is Leaders Eat Last. And I'll share, so I'm going to leave this if you guys want to make a quick note of this. I can actually share the detail on the chat. I can do it. Let me stop sharing and then go to the chat. Link for the book. Start With Why. These books are worth reading. I mean, everybody should read it, no matter whether you. Is this working? This seems to be a very long.
Yeah, it's the full link.
And can you click on that? Does it work?
Yeah.
Does
and
work?
while you're
and I'll talk about these books in a minute.
Yeah,
I
have those. So
it is coming up.
Very good.
For people who are interested in this guy, he has a lot of he has half an hour or so talks on YouTube.
Absolutely.
Through TED, which essentially is a summary of these books as well.
Absolutely. The author's name, amazing. I have seen him speaking in person as well. Is Simon Sinek. I'll pick up a few examples. In his book, Starting With Why, one of the last chapters, he talks about an island where a bunch of people have got stranded because their boat was wrecked. Okay. And, there are a group of 15, 20 people, whatever, and they don't know what to do. Then one of them says, who certainly has leadership skills, he says, you know what, guys, you see it that far of the island, smoke coming out. He would say, yeah. He said, you know what, probably a group of people live there. They're cooking something, or they're having a fire. Let's just walk to them and see if they can help us. Now, this guy, looking at the smoke, had no more information than other people in the team. But he had a clear direction, he had a clear vision, he gave a hope to people, and he was willing to march himself at the front of the crowd. That's a leader. Okay, he did it. These are uncertain circumstances, they were in a challenging situation, and he basically worked his way through it. And so that's a very interesting thing that they talk about. Now, Leaders Eat Last is a very interesting book, which is about, people who are real leaders. They're not always looking to figure out how to grow in their career first. They want people under them to grow through it. Very good. And when they succeed, these people succeed automatically over a period of time. A very good example is given in Army or Navy or Air Force. Whenever the whole platoon gets together for dinner at the end of the day or in the evening, and there's a line for dinner, people in the junior most level stand in the front of the line. Okay. And the commanders stand at the end of the line. That's the reason is simple. If the food gets over, the people who are on the fighting battlefield get it first. Commanders don't. Now, I'll take a very different example. I go to these events, and I'm going to be critical about this. It's fine. There's a very big organization which is run here in Silicon Valley and across the world called TIE. A lot of people are aware of them. Now, they have this annual event called TIECon. I have been track chair of different tracks, and there's this annual gala dinner. When you go to this annual gala dinner, there are nice food that they serve when there's an event and all. Typically, what they do is they have a bunch of tables reserved for special guests. Okay. And then when the dinner time comes, these special guests or so-called leaders of TIE actually go to get their food first, and then everybody else goes. This clearly shows that these people are not really good leaders. One of the reasons why the organization has suffered over a number of years, and they have to go around raising money, and this coronavirus may basically bring them down. But this is the moment a leader thinks that he or she needs special treatment first before people who are in the organization, the game is over. Because people perceive it, they may not say anything, but they resent it. And this is, and I'll give you another example. When I used to work with GE right after my MBA, whenever we used to have some of these group events, same thing. The leaders will wait till the end. And some of them were so humble to actually, I remember once there was somebody's baby shower, they would cut cake, put them in plate and give it to all people. I was like a fresh MBA at that time. I was amazed at their humbleness. Compared to, for example, political leaders in India, for example, right now, those called social workers, who right now they're going to help these poor people and migrant laborers. One person gives a banana to a poor guy and 5 people are there to take the photograph and put on Facebook. These are not leaders. These are not leaders. These are people who will, they might have made money. That's a different thing. These are some of the things which this book basically brings out. And it basically also answers some of the questions which I think one of our Bipin had or Milind had was, how do you inspire people under you to work for you? I mean, it's like, some of the managers you'll see, and I'll talk about what's different between manager and a leader, is, there's a deadline tomorrow. And at 5 o'clock, the person will say, hey guys, why don't you, get this done? And, I'm always available. You can call me. And the person leaves the office. And he or she calls at 8 o'clock in the evening to check whether people have got things done or not. And, and same thing next morning. Look, you have a life, we understand it. People working for you also have a life. If the deadline is so critical that everybody has to be there till 8 o'clock to work upon it, the leader needs to stay in the office. Probably order dinner for everybody and have dinner with them before they leave. It makes a difference. It gives the right message to people working for them, instead of going to home and calling them up. These are very subtle things, but it shows, because the person was leaving at 5 o'clock and then calling up 8 o'clock. These are what I call managers, people, or rather manipulators, who basically think that they're above those who are under them, and they serve them instead of, like their way of thinking is different. 1 second, guys. I'm trying to get somebody to join us, and let's see if the person can join. I was trying to get somebody to join the call, but her mom is not feeling well, so which is fine, which I understand. So these are some of the things which are very apparent, small things which people perceive, and they basically go from there. Okay, good. Let me pick up the next topic. Managers versus leaders, right? I mean, most of the people whom you see around in your companies, whom you interact with, they're managers, they're not leaders. And what are the key difference? I'll list out a few things, right? Number one, a manager has an ability to motivate you by figuring out your inherent skills and give you satisfaction in what you do. A manager will try to manipulate you based upon rewards that you might get, and then try to control it to see whether they can get the best out of you or not. Very subtle difference, very important. Number two, a strong leader understands that you may one day succeed them, and they are confident in their ability that they will go ahead and do something bigger and better. Most of the people you see around are managers. If they are at level, let's say whatever, level 10, and people under them are at level 8 or 9, they never get promoted till this guy goes from 10 to 11. It shows his own inherent insecurities. They are all managers. Third, A manager will typically complain that top senior management is not doing this, that, what can I do? A leader will listen to the people under them, take their proposal to the people at the top, make a recommendation, and maybe then take ownership of doing something with his or her team instead of complaining all the time. Very important quality of a leader. These are things which you see everywhere, every day in the organization. And when a very strong leader comes and he or she starts rising through the rank, these managers resent it a lot because their fiefdoms are basically, challenged, their turfs are getting challenged, and they take the conversation in a very different direction. This is what basically inherently happens. So I would like to stop here because this manager versus leader is a very clear distinction. A very philosophical way to put it is, a manager is always looking for a nice wall on which he or she can put the ladder and they can climb. A leader is somebody who's going to build a wall which anybody can put a ladder to climb, and they're happy about it. And it's okay if you don't see a lot of leaders around. Typically, good leadership skills in any species, including human, it's only 5% people. The rest of the people are just follow us. Let me stop here. I would like to answer specific questions people may have on managers versus leaders. It's a very clear distinction, and you have to also decide within yourself whether you want to pursue a career of being a manager or being a leader. And that's something that's going to make a lot of difference, because over a period of time, of course, leaders get rewarded more than managers. Any observations you want to share, things that you want people to know, or thought processes that you feel are relevant? Happy to basically go through that.
Hi, Tushar, just one question. So for somebody managing a big group, what do you think is the right right balance between leadership and management? So basically, you would need both. That's my first question. And if so, what is the right balance?
So Milind, I'm so sorry to answer your question in a way that might not be flattering to you, but that's not a question, my friend. A leader by nature is a good manager. Being a good management is part of leadership. So be a leader. As a leader, you will motivate people, you will encourage them, and in that process, lead them. So you should not be managing people, you should be leading them. Now, if your question is how much time a leader should be putting into strategy, vision, motivating people versus taking care of operational and day-to-day things, a leader has to have an ability to keep an eye on what's going on in operations and day-to-day activity by appointing trusted lieutenants who are good managers to basically work on his behalf to manage some of those under his leadership and his vision. That's the way you have to think.
Sure.
It's not like you switch between roles. You are a leader, and management comes in. I mean, look at, this is not going to be a political discussion here, but our current Prime Minister in India is a strong leader. We may not agree with all his policies, that's a different topic. But he's a good leader who motivates, who's got given vision to people and stuff like that. And people under him can be good managers who follow whatever they are. Compared to the previous Prime Minister, who was a brilliant economist and a good manager, but was not a leader. So, he was a very good finance minister, but could never become a good prime minister. And that's okay. You have to understand that in case if you do not have those leadership skills, your career and personal growth will come to a point where it will stop at a place where you can take commands from people, but you cannot motivate and work with them.
Sure.
Okay, let me move to another topic which I wanted to bring up. Well, we already discussed something called key natural personality traits for becoming a leader. And then, okay, one topic I want to bring up, and then we'll take a quick break and then we'll come back and I'll talk about artificial intelligence and cloud computing. So, how do we hone these leadership skills, right? And, you can't always take risks in your workplace by experimenting, right? If your career is at stake, your job, your money, your financial security and everything. What I've found over the last 5 to 6 years is participating in these kind of, community activities, of course, volunteering your time, that can be a good place for you to hone your leadership skills and basically improve yourself over a period of time. And if you make mistakes, it's okay. For example, if Lakshmi is running a Power of Now group or Farhana is running a session, and let's say they do not do something ideal, and they go back and reflect and think that they can improve, that's okay. Because at work, it might be a higher price. So engaging in community activities by volunteering to lead can be a good place for you to hone your leadership skills. It really helps. It really works. I will love to answer any questions related to that. Then take a quick break for myself. You guys can continue discussing, and then I'm going to come back and talk about cloud computing and artificial intelligence. And the reason I'm going to bring that up is, if you want to become a leader in technology industry over the next 5 to 10 years, it runs into leadership skills. You got to know key technological trends also really well. And I'm going to be sharing a website with you guys as well. We can go and start with information, but happy to answer questions. I'm going to share a website first, and then we'll be happy to answer questions you guys may have on anything that you want to ask in cloud computing and artificial intelligence in terms of players, challenges, opportunities, products, companies. Would love to. But first, answer any questions on community leadership right now.
How do you see this COVID shutdown? I mean, the social distancing impacting essentially community leadership. Do you think everything's going to have to be online, or do you foresee, I don't know, a return to normalcy?
So I'll make it very simple for you. Leadership is not something which is specific to a situation. It actually exists everywhere. So right now in COVID-19, for example, Sahid is running these organizations virtually. So right now also leadership is required. Now, whether it's an in-person event or a virtual event, the way you conduct yourself is different, but fundamental qualities of leader remains. And I'm going to make a sarcastic political comment. Please don't take it in a way which is, again, biased politically. But we are seeing a big leadership crisis in Washington right now during COVID-19. It's almost like a circus. Correct. But friends, it's not that before COVID-19 there was a great leadership. It was a circus anyway. It's just that COVID crisis, challenges, problems bring out the weaknesses much more, because now people are expecting you to act. People expect results in a much shorter time frame, and it basically exposes you much more. So if you're a good leader before, you're going to become a better leader now. If you're a weak person, then you are going to break down much more. So leadership will be required. And if you think carefully, the fundamental qualities of leadership remain kind of same, no matter what era of history you are looking at, which vertical, which geography, which industry you are looking at. Those are inherent qualities. That's why you see sometimes good sport players become good industry leaders. Good industry leaders sometimes become good political or community leaders, right? For example, India's freedom movement was led by a bunch of really smart lawyers. They were all leaders in their own right, in their own profession. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Mahatma Gandhi, Maulana Azad, Sardar Patel, Nehru, Rajendra, all were lawyers. The thing is, those transformative skills are already there. How the world will come back when COVID-19 comes in, whatever form or shape it comes back, it will still require leaders to lead people through transitions, through challenges, and work their way through it. Good. So guys, what I'll do is I'll take a quick break for a few minutes. You guys can continue the conversation. And then I'm going to come and talk about 2 key technology trends which you all need to become familiar with. And I'm going to share a very simple website, not trying to sell my company, but something which you can easily pick it up from about cloud computing and artificial intelligence. And then I'm going to answer questions that you have on cloud computing and artificial intelligence, some of the key skills that you need to have if you want to be leader in high-tech industry. And then we'll wrap it up around 9 o'clock. I'll take a couple of minutes break.
Farhana, a question to you, if you don't mind.
Not at all. And I was going to add something about what you just said about COVID-19, but go ahead, ask your question.
Well, the same question I asked of Tushar. What's your, what's your interest, or what's your pull, or your attraction to doing this? I see you're a co-host as well.
Oh, I didn't start off that way, but I was going to say that one thing that I saw happen with this group, with their FAIRC group, is it was a very active prior to COVID-19. It was really based on this vision that Tushar already communicated about, fundamental respect, and there's certain demographic for this group, and then fundamentally treating everybody with respect. And Shahid often reiterates what those rules are. There's like 3 in total. It's very basic. But as soon as COVID-19 hit, one of the things that made the group really active was the ability to get together often, right, personally, but his ability to shift into a virtual environment was almost immediate. His agileness and flexibility. So what he didn't change, I don't think, is that everybody's contributions, right? So some people who were able to step it up in the midst of this virtual environment and create a similar atmosphere, but in a different environment, him allowing for them to step up and take their talents, bring them to the forefront, maintain the integrity of the group, but it was able to adopt to this in a different environment. Because you would think a group like this could fall apart, right, with COVID-19. But if anything, it's more, I think, more active than ever. So that flexibility and agileness, right, and listening to other people, coming up with various solutions based on whoever has the best idea in the room. I think that this is just one display of many that I see why a leader maintains success throughout various environments. Oh, but why I did this, because Tushar forced me to.
Oh, okay.
I'm totally joking. We were talking about something, and this came up, and I told him about the stuff that I do at work. And this clarify your why with this thing that he talked about, the golden circle. I'm doing this activity tomorrow with my people in my group. And it's all about clarifying the vision. So this guy, Simon Sinek, he talks about that it's easy to describe what a group does and how a group does it, but not the why. And so he has this I have this exercise that I'm putting to everybody on my team, sort of under the radar. I'm just doing it because I want to, in asking them why they think our team does what we do, in trying to elicit those responses to make sure that they know what our vision is, and then also why they are doing what they're doing. So I can better pinpoint, why are they here? What is it that I can do to understand or clarify their why, or maybe help them find a different developmental opportunity in our group or outside. But I think I was talking about these exercises with him, and then he said, why don't you come? And I might elicit questions from you. So that was, and it seems like fun anyway, right? Because I love this stuff, but I was invited. It wasn't like I would have thought of this myself. So he's clearly the top leader here.
I don't think so.
No, I think so.
So guys, I'm going to share a quick website because a lot of people come to me and they talk to me and they want to learn about this stuff. So I'm going to share a screen with you guys. Come to this. I'm going to pick up from my own company because that's a place I know, but you guys can always pick up stuff on your own. So let's say if you want to really understand where exactly the world is right now in cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and different products, just go to aws.amazon.com, and I'm going to sharing this website, and you go to products. There are a bunch of different product categories here, and I would like to advise you to start with compute, which has got a set of compute products, a bunch of storage products, the compute, storage, databases, there is analytics, and there is machine learning. I'm going to put all of that right now on the, and you can pick up other areas as well. Good place for you to start. And they have really friendly website for you to start learning about this. I'm going to share this here. So site to learn about, anybody can go, and you can go to as much or as little technical depth that you want. Got it. Yeah, databases, analytics, and the last one is machine learning. The last one is. This is a very good place. You start with this. You spend a few weeks. You'll have a very good idea which direction industry is going, and then you can look at competitive products from Microsoft or Google. But just going this itself will give you enough information, especially if you're new to this area, you want to pursue a career in product management, product marketing, sales, any of these areas. If you're technical, you can go as much on technical depth as you like. But I would like to stop here and answer questions that people have. related to these two areas, different career paths, opportunities, what happens, what not. Feel free to share whatever you are feeling or whatever your aspirations are. And I will try to answer your questions as much as possible so that at the end of this, along with general leadership principles, you can actually get something much more concrete that you can work upon. Of course, going through this website and these particular areas will be helpful, but I want to give you guys something which is, immediately implementable as you go through your career, whether you want to be a leader or a manager or something else. Happy to answer questions people have, and no question is stupid, and no ambition is too ambitious.
Tushar, one question
Sure.
with regards to so how management and leadership is a lot of skills. It's a lot of soft skills. How well should the manager be on the technical side in addition to the soft skills?
Right. Look, here's the way it looks like. It's going to work out. Okay. Different industries work in different ways, but technology industry, I talked about 3 different areas of that you need to have to emerge as a really strong leader. Ability to think strategically, ability to meet your numbers and motivate people. Motivating people and meeting numbers is something which is specific about, it's relevant to every industry. But in whatever industry you are working in, you got to understand the underlying trends, underlying thought processes, and especially in technology industry, it's very critical for you to have a good grasp on technology, or else how are you going to lead innovation when you don't understand the fundamentals, right? And that's one of the reasons why you are seeing a lot of Indian leaders emerging in technology industry as CEOs, or they are at the level when they're reporting to CEO. And let me give you a few names, right? Satya is one, Sundar Pichai at Google is another. There's a guy called Prabhakar Raghavan who reports to Sundar Pichai and leads their whole search engine group. He's an Indian. At VMware, the top 3 CEOs, all the 3 chief operating officers are Indians. You pick up companies like, well, MasterCard was one, but in companies like Oracle, there was Thomas Kurian, who has now moved to lead Google Cloud. The head of NetApp, George Kurian, is another guy who's Indian, who's very well technically qualified. So here's a positive thing that you can think about. Okay, if somebody is good leader but has no clue of technology and has no aptitude to learn it, it's tough to basically teach them, right? And they can be good leaders in other industries, but technology industry can be challenging. But if you've got good grounding in technology, your willingness to improve your leadership skills, you still have a very good shot at it. For example, in order to understand good artificial intelligence really well, you should have had good background in mathematics in your 12th grade, or else we are going to have a very different conversation. You don't understand what is maxima and minima in calculus. So that's an advantage which you have. Lean upon that advantage. Even if you have not done technology or developed technology as an engineer for a long period of time, for example, which I have not, you can always go back to it and learn a lot in that particular path and improve yourself.
Makes sense.
So it's a good idea. So what I will suggest you should not do. Do not try to create a mental block or a set of excuse mentally to convince yourself, oh, you know what, I'm a good leader, I don't need to understand technology really well. It's not going to work out. So I will advise you to put some effort, learn about these things as much as you can, and not only learn from yourself, but have an ability to talk to others and grasp knowledge from them and integrate into your own thought process. That's the fastest way to learn. I mean, I have taken it to extreme. I run a 1,200 plus people organization in artificial intelligence for my undergrad alumni across the world. I learned from these guys and I've been doing it for 4 years. So that's an extreme case, but you should be willing to learn and engage with people. You need to show that openness and willingness to do. And it's tough because technology, when you start reading, for example, that particular website I've shared, is not always as fancy and as beautiful at reading Russian history or French literature. It's always boring to start with. Once you start going deep into it and start thinking through that, it becomes interesting.
Makes sense. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Other questions people have?
Tushar, this is
Mona.
I have one question.
Go ahead, Mona.
Yeah, Mona, go ahead and introduce yourself. I've never met you. And if you feel comfortable, be on the camera. If not, it's completely understandable.
Yeah, actually, right now I just connected through a laptop which doesn't have the webcam.
No worries.
Sorry about that. But I have a question. You mentioned that, yeah, you have to be ready to learn the technology and all. but I wanted to know up to what level. Certainly for artificial intelligence, you need calculus knowledge,
No, I'm
but
just
you're
giving
not
an
going to
example.
solve, right? At the top position, you're
Understood.
not going to
Understood.
solve the
So
problem.
I
So
understand.
just being at high level is okay, right?
Here is how it works. Okay, I'm going to share something with you guys real quickly. These are called Amazon leadership principles. I'm going to be sharing with you real quickly, and that's going to answer your question as well. So
And if in connection to that, I also want to know, being at the top position, right? Basically at the leadership position, you have to have the high level knowledge of thing, and how you keep update
right,
because
right.
the technology is
So
changing so
makes
fast
sense.
these
Makes
days.
sense. There are 13 or 14 leadership principles which I'd actually shared at one point of time in discussions group. They're called Amazon leadership principle. You can basically take a look at it. If you look at a quality of 13 or 14 qualities, I'm answering your question. You all can read it. There is a place where it says think big. So as a leader, you have got to understand the overall vision, think through it, have the vision, and have a high level understanding of technology, different pieces, important players. But at some point of time, it also says dive deep. And what does it mean? Basically means that you may not know about every technology right now, but if required, you can go deep as and when needed. So I'll give you an example. There are a lot of different technologies in artificial intelligence, which I certainly understand at a high level: natural language processing, computer vision, image recognition, voice recognition, stuff like that. I have a friend who's writing a book on natural language processing, and I had a conversation with him yesterday. And in that conversation, I went really deep. So you should understand the things at good enough high level, understand the key players, key technologies and stuff. But as and when it is required, you can go and pick up one thing and go really deep if it is needed. That is the quality of a leader. So, and that's the reason I brought this up, because a lot of people think that these are conflicting. They are not. So thinking big and diving deep are not contradictory things. You probably need to think big and need to understand it's a 10 different areas overall, but as and when required, you can basically roll up your sleeves and go deep. And I'm going to share this also with you guys on the channel in terms of, I love them. I have always shared with people. And Amazon uses this all the way from recruiting people to evaluating them and doing everything and running the business on a day-to-day basis. Hopefully that answers your question, Mona. Other questions that people have? Okay, so guys.
Tushar, this is Lakshmi. I have one question. So besides cloud computing and artificial intelligence, what are the other technologies you think that are going to be very important in the future?
Absolutely. So let me share my screen back 1 second. And I'm going to give you, since these technologies are same website can give you information about this. I want to make sure I'm not missing them. So, general basic cloud computing infrastructure. But if you look through these on the product side of AWS, blockchain is certainly going to be important. And again, this is a place where you can pick up information about it, especially in financial services for Farhana and others. Blockchain is a key technology which is going to transform how people work and go get through it. AR, VR, which is augmented reality and virtual reality. This technology is going to really pick up over a period of time. I mean, for example, remote work and all. If we can have better augmented and virtual reality, software and stuff, that can be really helpful. If you come down here and go through this, in general, the area where you work in, Lakshmi, security, identity, and compliance, it's always going to be important. Whether it's cloud or AI or not, this has always been important. Robotics is an important technology. Independent of how artificial intelligence applies to it, robotics as a technology is going to, for example, on Thursday, I'm attending a webinar from Stanford, Human AI Interaction Group. It's going to be talking about deploying robotics for healthcare, replacing nurses, especially when you're dealing with COVID-19 kind of situations. Quantum technologies is something which is picked up. Ambika was talking about, IBM has done a lot of good work in this area. It's another important technology which is basically picked up, worked its way through things. Mobile communication has been there for 20 years. There's nothing much to say. Internet of Things have certainly picked up and certainly going to be even more relevant. And some of these are, Cloud computing is a way to deliver these solutions. But in terms of fundamental technologies, along with artificial intelligence, if I have to summarize, augmented reality and virtual reality, blockchain, if I come down to quantum technologies, robotics, security in general, Internet of Things, these are going to be important going forward. They have, and you all can learn about it from this particular website itself. I really love it. This is a very customer-oriented company. They put all the information here.
Thanks, Tushar.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to make sure I'm giving some clear, simple pointers to people if they want to go back and do something in terms of not just the overall leadership skills, but hardcore technical skills as well, as you're looking for jobs or career change in this challenging environment. Other questions people have?
Hi, Tushar. This is Rachna. I'm mostly from the finance background.
Mm-hmm.
So most of this technology stuff goes like bouncer on me. Apart from these technological skills, what from the finance perspective, what do you think should be something to go move forward? So currently I work as an IC and I'm trying to approach towards the manager and then go towards the leadership role.
Which area of finance are you in? By the way, I do have a background in finance. My MBA was in finance. I was on Wall Street for 6-7 years. So what area of finance you're in?
So currently I'm working in the FP&A stream.
Got it.
So my last job was with Gilead Sciences. Many of you might know now what Gilead, because it's working on the COVID thing. But yeah, it was a contract job. I worked for the US commercial operations,
Makes
US
sense.
sales and marketing.
So the immediate thing that you can think about is, have you done CPA?
Yes.
Okay, so that's one thing you have done. If you want to expand your horizon in finance itself and grow into more ambitious and good roles over a period of time, there's something called CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst Program. Okay, and it's basically 3 stages of exams. I've cleared 1 or 2 of them, and then I moved into different industry. It's a very good area because what you're doing right now is operational finance, not a strategic finance or investments. But given that you're a smart person, motivated, the best place to start is, and it doesn't matter how many levels of CFA you clear. At every level, you have different kind of opportunities. If I were you, I will invest whatever $1,000, $1,500 it takes to register, or you can order books and register for a CFA exam 6 months down the line and take the level 1 right now. It's as good as going for, it's equivalent to first year of MBA actually, in terms of the topics that they cover and how they basically do it. And that's the place I will start with. And that can lead up to many more new opportunities in investor relations, understanding financial statements, or even a career in financial management, asset management over a period of time. So risk management, those kind of stuff can clear up. I'd also like to give a chance to Farhana to see if she wants to say, kind of share some aspects of what you can do to train yourself to pursue a career in risk management. There is something called FRM or something, but which is also a certification. But any courses or certifications or exams you think, Farhana, which Rachna can think about from risk management perspective?
Rachna, are you thinking about risk management? Is that a viable option for you?
So Tushar is I'm just exploring more options. Most of these people, those who are attending this leadership presentation by Tushar, are technical. I'm not from the technical background.
Yeah, neither am I.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to understand what additional skills should I be pursuing to follow the leadership chain.
Right, and what he's trying to get is, Farhana, what I was trying to basically, where I'm coming from is, FP&A roles are kind of limited, and they typically are good, but they're not very, high paying and cannot be a full-time career for a long period of time. So in addition to doing a CPA, they can think about pursuing a career in risk management or asset management, any of these areas. I suggested CFA level 1, but I understand there are areas in risk management where you can basically take some good certifications or courses, and you can think about pursuing that. It's going to open up many more options for her.
Yeah, I would agree with that, with risk management. It depends on the type of risk, right? There's various pillars of risk, but if you're looking at regulatory risk, which is what I'm in, the preeminent certification is the Compliance Risk Management certificate. And mean, you do have to be in the role for a certain number of years, a couple of years before you sit for that type of exam. But there's lots of different. There's also the BSA anti-money laundering exam. It's called ACAMS. If you really are interested in that, you can let me know, and I can give you the list of. There's IIA. There's multiple exams that you can sit for after a couple of years of being in the risk management space, regulatory specifically. There might be other certifications and other risk stripes, and I just don't know about them. But if it's something that's of interest, I can try and find out.
Sure. Thanks for sharing, Prana and Tushar. I'll let you know because I wasn't looking for like so much of studying. My studying was done in 2010, 11 at most. It's been 10 years now.
Yeah, some of these, but the thing is, if you want to switch careers and stuff, just appearing for this exam and clearing one of these, let's say you want to move into something new, and
Right.
appearing for this exam and getting more knowledge always helps you convince the other person that you are sincere about it, you're making an effort, and then it's much easier for somebody else to take a chance on you because they know that you're investing in it. You know what I mean? And that makes sense. Or else what happens is you'll be always confined with whatever your capabilities and limits are right now. And as you must have seen, FP&A jobs are good. There are a lot of FP&A jobs, but the amount of competition for it is also very high, and the opportunities certainly become limited. And if you want to remain in finance, not technology, in your field, I would think about expanding my scope a little. But of course, it's your choice how you want to take it forward.
Got it. I'll give a second thought on it. I'll do some
Absolutely.
research on my end and I'll ask for details.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Other questions people have, we're seeing people dropping down, and we can certainly wrap it up in a couple of minutes if we don't have any questions.
I may have a question in AI, maybe if you could proceed.
Sure, go ahead, Vipin.
No, once you proceed explaining the AI work that you had a session on AI, right? In the agenda.
No, so that's what I covered, right? I basically went to the place from where you can basically get information on computing and AI products. Happy to answer any specific question you have about technology, industry opportunities, whatever it is.
Yeah, sure. So, this is regarding the machine learning and AI. So, so that we need data, and still now self-driving cars are not foolproof. I can see way more driving in Mountain View always, but I don't see it commercially being used. So what is that like? For example, what is all this data, supercomputing power, and still there's human beings pick up a 15-year-old guy can pick up driving within 1 or 2 weeks. He can get that Kacha license. But how is that the human beings can pick up so well? Like what are we learning from
that's a session in itself. But in terms of career opportunities, self-driving cars are going through a lot of rough time right now. All prices really tanking. Having self-driving and electric vehicles may not be a very profitable alternative. And self-driving cars, think about this, right? Self-driving cars are replacing complete human brain. It is a very challenging thing. All other applications of AI, let's say voice recognition, it only picks one part of my body, how I recognize voice or image or computer vision. It only simulates my eye. Self-driving car needs to simulate everything in a human body, all its senses, all its brain.
Sensors, yeah.
It's the toughest problem to crack. There are level 1 to level 5 different levels of self-driving and automation. But that industry in itself will go through a lot of slowdown, and that may not be the right place for you to be focusing on energy. If I were you want to get into AI, let me share something with you, and that way you will get a little bit more direct idea of which areas to focus upon. So if you come to products and you come to machine learning, there are a lot of different areas here. Augmented AI, you have Comprehend, you have Lex, which is about voice and text bots, you have Poly. A lot of new products have come here. When I don't recognize Recognition, Text Track, Translate. These are looking at simpler problems in artificial intelligence, which I will advise you to take a look at it, become more familiar, instead of thinking about a career in self-driving car, which is not a very sustainable value proposition right now.
I'm not actually thinking of it. I'm just thinking why it's taking, what is that? That we have multiple sensors. They all have to be coordinated.
That's what I'm saying. That think about trying to simulate a human eye, a human ear, a human thinking capability, reflexive behavior, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Putting everything together becomes a very challenging value proposition. So it's going to take some time. Let me take other questions as well. There's a question from Sahid. He says, question from George, who works for Google. Based on your knowledge of each company's culture, who among the top 4 in high-tech exhibits the best type of leadership and why? So guys, let me answer this. So there's this list of companies called FANGM: Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and Microsoft, right? All of these companies, they look same from outside and the stocks have been doing good, but they're very different companies, okay? Microsoft is a traditional company which certainly has very good, strong leadership, and they value and care for their employees a lot. It has been around for the longest among all of these companies. Google and Facebook typically have much more friendlier work culture, especially for women, very friendlier work culture. Others also have it, but these two have much more, especially with Sheryl Sandberg being in Facebook. Certainly a great enjoyment for them. Apple and Amazon are in businesses which are very tough, highly competitive, very innovative. So you are at your toes all the time, and work-life balance is not as great as, let's say, Google and Facebook. And Netflix, I don't know the company very well. It's still a smaller company. So think about where exactly you want to be in 5 years in terms of the nature of the role, what you're doing, and you will work from there. So from that particular aspect, I will advise you. In terms of work-life balance, I've heard Google and Facebook are the best. I mean, if you check out the top employers who are liked by employees, like, best places to work for, among these 5 companies, you'll automatically get an idea in terms of where people may prefer to work. I can't speak more than that, as you can imagine. Simi said, what is a good alternative to machine learning for someone who's more into algorithms than data, as a large portion of ML is data analysis? So Simi, here's the thing, right? Machine learning, there are a couple of different, the first step itself is data analysis, and you have to understand how data pipelines work and stuff like that. But if that's not an area where you want to make a career, I completely understand. The fundamental area of artificial intelligence and the products that I have basically laid out, you got to understand it. For example, RNNs and CNNs, recurrent neural networks and convolutional neural networks. And then you should be willing to do a lot of coding to improve the quality of these algorithms. The challenge is, or the trick is, artificial intelligence and machine learning has been around for almost 70 years now. And the algorithms which are used by people, a lot of them are public, they're open source. A lot of these companies have more or less similar algorithms. The difference, what makes one product better than others, is availability of data to train these models. That's why data analysis becomes important. But there's the whole area of algorithmic development in artificial intelligence, and that's a career that you can make. And if you've been a good algorithmic software engineer, you can certainly do that. I had friends who used to work in CAD industry, which is about chip design using software. They moved into companies like Google over a period of time to work on the search engines. So, if you liked your algorithmic course in your undergrad or master's program, and search algorithms, graph algorithms, and stuff like that, and then you've taken some AI-related courses, you like it, certainly can make a career out of it. Let me look at other questions which people have. I think we are okay. I don't see anything here in the chat box, but happy to answer others which people have as the numbers start dwindling out. Good. So if people don't have it, this was a good session, guys. I always wanted to do this. It's not possible for me to meet everybody one-on-one. Hopefully people benefited from it. We can do this again after 6 months. And hopefully it goes.
Great sessions, Tushar, and I
Thank
hope
you.
you and Prana join hands and create a leadership group or something like that. That'll be very,
We'll
very
do that. I will do that, hopefully.
Great session, Tushar. It was
Thank you so
extremely
much.
helpful.
Can I ask a quick question? If there were practical sessions about how to increase on certain skills, especially emotional intelligence, would that be of interest to people?
Totally, Farhana, and I've seen how you create the worksheets in the Pond group as well. Totally.
I'm down. Absolutely. Yep.
So things like active, engaged listening, curiosity questions, connect before, correct. If there were structured lessons on how to increase that skill set. So it's not about technology. It's not about even knowing the industry. It's totally about emotional intelligence, empowerment. Is that something that people are interested in?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I will be interested too.
It's the ultimate technology, coming
Yeah.
down to the core, being grounded in the self. Absolutely.
And what about strength-based training? So understanding what your strengths are, what your talents are, where they can take you, how to assess
Yeah.
that in somebody else, all of that.
Totally, I'm
Absolutely.
interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I did the StrengthsFinder course at Cisco WebEx, and
Yep.
I found that their responses were essentially cookie cutter, pre-made, like a scrapbook. You know, you go through these questions and like a lot of text. Do you think that there is value in StrengthsFinder? I didn't pay too much attention to the responses I got.
Oh
because
yeah, I'm a huge fan of strength finders. But what you need is some interpretation. I'll definitely say that. So I have access to a book. I think if I can find it, where there's an interpretation on saying if whatever your strengths are, here are the different professions and different work areas or environments that people of your strength profile generally fit into. So what it does is it says, if you have these top talent themes, the people who also share that with you find themselves doing this kind of work. So if you didn't get that interpretation, then it's not very helpful. But what it does is you can say, like, I know my strengths and I see where I align with others who have that same profile and what they do for a living. So what it allows me to say is, well, do I need to switch, right? Do I need to go into something like that? Or how can I take some of the attributes of that particular industry or whatever it is that they do and apply that to what I have today to make me happier in what I do. So I'm a big fan, but you need to have a deeper understanding of what e-strength amounts to and how you can take it to another level.
Thank you.
So if you want to give me your strengths, I can help you through that interpretive process if you want. If you know your top 5 talent themes.
Not right now.
I mean, whenever.
Awesome, Farhana. Really look forward to those kind of events.
Right.
Perfect.
And I
Thank
know
you,
you're
guys.
fantastic.
Thank you, Tushar. That was really
Absolutely.
Thank you, Tushar. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
everyone.
Great
Okay.
I
session.
hope to connect with you. I missed the yoga class today because I wasn't in the WhatsApp group, but I've sent you a message on Meetup. So thank you.
Perfect.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Take
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Thank
Bye.
you.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you, Tushar and Farhana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tushar and Farhana.
Thank you. Bye.